The elevator doors parted to reveal my boss Conrad standing with two stone-faced security guards outside my office. My rolling suitcase wheels squeaked to a halt on the polished floor. A metallic keypad glinted where my regular door handle should have been. Conrad's thin smile didn't match his eyes. "Welcome back, Valentina. How was Barbados?" The question hung unanswered as I stared at the strange device attached to my door. My nameplate remained, but everything else felt wrong, like returning home to find furniture slightly rearranged. "What happened to my door?" I asked, still clutching the handle of my carry-on. "There was a security breach last Thursday night," Conrad said, rocking slightly on his heels. "Someone accessed confidential client information from your terminal after hours." My heart accelerated. "That's impossible. I was on a beach thousands of miles away." "Which is precisely why we had to investigate," Conrad replied, sliding a master keycard into the new reader. The light flashed green. We needed to secure the room and determine what happened. The security personnel, a tall woman with a severe bun and a broad-shouldered man with watchful eyes, flanked me as I entered. The space was technically intact, yet violated. My ergonomic chair sat 2 inches too far from my desk. The monitor was angled differently. File folders had been restacked. "Everything was thoroughly examined," Conrad explained, gesturing vaguely around the room. "Standard protocol." The security woman, her badge read Tamara, pulled on blue latex gloves with a snap that made me flinch. She moved to my desk and opened the bottom drawer, the one where I kept personal items, the drawer I always kept locked. "This is what we found during our investigation," she said, voice flat and professional. Inside sat a vintage silver pocket watch with intricate engravings around its face and an ornate W on its case. The timepiece rested on my emergency sweater like evidence at a crime scene. "That's not mine," I said immediately. Conrad's face hardened. "It belongs to Walter," he said. "Our chairman." The air in the room shifted. Both security officers exchanged meaningful glances. "Walter reported it missing after the board retreat," Conrad continued. "An irreplaceable family heirloom." "I've never seen it before," I insisted, but my voice sounded small, even to me. Conrad sighed dramatically. "Valentina, this is serious. Theft of personal property from an executive, especially something of such significant value." The male security officer, Darius, according to his badge, pulled out a tablet. "We'll need your badge and laptop. You're being placed on administrative leave, pending investigation." "Administrative leave? I just got back from approved vacation time." "I'm afraid this can't wait," Conrad said, extending his hand for my badge. "We have to follow procedure." As I unclipped my security badge, I noticed something in Conrad's expression, a flicker of satisfaction beneath the mask of corporate concern. "Your team has been temporarily reassigned," he added, "and the Singapore project has been transferred to my oversight. For continuity, the Singapore project, my project, the account I'd built from nothing over 18 months. The one Conrad had tried and failed to lead before it landed on my desk. The one that had just cleared final approval for its multi-million-dollar expansion phase. I surrendered my badge and laptop in a daze. Darius asked me to sign several forms acknowledging the investigation. Then they escorted me back to the elevator, past curious eyes and whispers from colleagues who'd been friendly just a week ago. As the doors closed, I caught Conrad already walking toward my team's workstations, shoulders squared with new authority. "Hey, I know you're probably wondering what happened next." I was wondering the same thing as I stood in that elevator. If you're feeling as shocked as I felt, please hit like so I know I'm not alone in this. Actually, leave a comment below about the worst betrayal you've experienced at work. Sometimes knowing others have been there helps. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss how this twisted situation unravels. Trust me, what happens next changed everything about who I thought I was. My name is Valentina Torres, and until that morning, I was the youngest director of international development in company history. I'd built a reputation for turning struggling territories into profit centers. The Singapore expansion was supposed to be my masterpiece, the achievement that would propel me to vice president before my 35th birthday. I'd earned that vacation in Barbados. 10 days of actual disconnection after working 60-hour weeks for months. No laptop, minimal phone checking. Just sun, beach, and the stack of novels I'd been collecting on my nightstand for a year. Now I sat in my apartment, still in the pencil, skirt, and blouse I'd carefully selected that morning, staring at the wall. The vacation tan on my arms suddenly seemed ridiculous, like a costume from someone else's life. My phone pinged with an email from Human Resources, a formal notification about my administrative leave, outlining that I was prohibited from contacting team members or accessing company systems until the investigation concluded. Then another ping, a text from Naima, my closest ally on the executive floor. What the hell happened? Conrad's holding court in the conference room with your entire team. I called her immediately. I got accused of stealing the chairman's pocket watch, I explained, my voice hollow. They found it in my drawer. Walter's watch? That's insane. You were literally in another country. Tell that to Conrad. He had security waiting for me like I'm some kind of criminal. Naima lowered her voice. Listen, people are talking. Conrad's telling everyone they've been investigating you for weeks. He's implying there might be other things missing. My stomach clenched. That's absurd. He also mentioned performance concerns with Singapore. Said he's conducting a full audit of your work. I pressed my palm against my forehead. He's rewriting history. That project was failing when he had it. I'm the one who secured the government partnership. I know that, but he's spinning a different story. Naima paused. Val, this feels calculated. The memory surfaced instantly 3 months earlier, returning early to the conference room before the quarterly executive meeting. I'd forgotten my presentation notes and thought the room was empty. Instead, I'd seen Conrad hunched over Walter's suit jacket, which had been draped over a chair. His hand slipped into the pocket, emerged with that same silver watch, and disappeared into his own jacket pocket. I'd backed away silently, unsure what I'd witnessed. At the time, I'd convinced myself I misinterpreted something innocent. Now that moment replayed with crystal clarity. Naima, I think Conrad planted that watch in my drawer. Why would he? Because he wants Singapore. And because I saw him take that watch months ago. The line went silent for a moment. Did you ever tell anyone what you saw? She finally asked. No, I wasn't certain what I saw. And then he became your biggest problem. Naima finished for me. After that day, Conrad's behavior toward me had shifted. Small criticisms in meetings, questioning my decisions, excluding me from conversations with key stakeholders. I'd attributed it to professional jealousy after I landed Singapore. Now I wondered if he'd somehow realized I'd witnessed his theft. What happens now? I asked. HR will investigate. But Val, if Conrad took that watch originally and has now planted it in your office, this goes beyond office politics. This is premeditated. The realization settled like ice water in my veins. The timing wasn't coincidental. Conrad had waited until I was completely unreachable on vacation to make his move. I need to talk to Walter directly, I said. Bad idea. Conrad is tight with him. Goes back years. Without evidence, it's your word against Conrad's. And right now, the physical evidence is literally in your drawer. My mind raced through options, each seeming worse than the last. I could resign before they fired me, but that would look like an admission of guilt. I could fight the accusation, but with what proof? There's something else, Naima said hesitantly. Remember Greer from marketing? She got called into HR this afternoon. Apparently, Conrad told them you'd been taking credit for her campaign ideas. What? That's ridiculous. Greer and I barely worked together. She told them the same thing, but the damage is done. He's building a pattern, Val. This isn't just about the watch anymore. As we talked, more messages arrived. HR requesting an interview tomorrow. An automated notification that my email access had been suspended. And most painful, a group text from my team asking what was happening. Before I could respond, another message appeared from a number I didn't recognize. This is Eleni from your team. Conrad collected all our phones during the meeting and told us not to contact you. I'm using my personal number. Everyone's scared. He's saying you manipulated project numbers. What should we do? I felt sick reading Eleni's message. Conrad wasn't just trying to remove me. He was systematically dismantling my reputation, my relationships, and my work. He's gathering my team to poison them against me, I told Naima. He's saying I manipulated project numbers. That's not just career sabotage, Naima said. That's potentially criminal accusation. I sank onto my couch, mind racing. I need to think. I'll call you tomorrow after my HR meeting. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I created a timeline of everything that had happened since I took over Singapore. Each interaction with Conrad, every success that seemed to trigger his resentment. The pattern was clearer now. Whenever I achieved something significant, something would mysteriously go wrong afterward. After I secured the government partnership, my slide deck for the board presentation was mysteriously corrupted. When my financial projections were praised in the quarterly review, Conrad discovered errors in my calculations the following week. When the CEO mentioned my leadership in the company newsletter, anonymous concerns about my management style surfaced in HR. Each incident seemed random at the time. Together, they formed a deliberate campaign. By morning, I had two realizations. Conrad had been undermining me for months, and fighting him directly would be nearly impossible. He had authority, relationships, and now, apparent evidence. The HR meeting was exactly what I expected. Two representatives with carefully neutral expressions asked pointed questions about Walter's watch, my access credentials, and my relationship with Conrad. When I suggested he might have planted the watch, they exchanged glances. "That's a serious accusation," said the older HR representative Julian. "Do you have any evidence to support this claim?" I didn't. Not really. Just my word against Conrad's, and a drawer full of damning evidence. That afternoon, Naima called again. "It's getting worse. Conrad's telling people they found irregularities in your expense reports." "That's impossible. Finance approves everything. He's saying you have a special relationship with someone in accounting, that you manipulated them." I laughed bitterly. "My special relationship is that I actually file my reports on time instead of making them chase me for receipts. He's building a narrative, Val, creating a pattern of dishonesty." Later that day, another text from Alini. Conrad reshuffled the entire Singapore project team, promoted Vic to team lead. Anyone who questioned it was told they could join your administrative leave if they preferred. Vic, Conrad's most loyal soldier. 2 days into my leave, I realized I needed evidence, not just to defend myself, but to understand the full scope of what I was facing. I called Eleni again. "I need information," I told her. "Anything you can tell me about what's happening inside." "It's bad," she whispered. "Conrad's rewriting project history, says you hid problems from leadership. Vic backs him up on everything. Most people are too scared to speak up." "What about my files? My emails?" "It did a complete backup of your system before turning your laptop over to security. Conrad's been going through everything." My mind raced. "Eleni, I need a favor. It's risky. Whatever you need. This isn't right. Can you check something for me? Look at who accessed my office after hours the night they found the watch." 2 hours later, she texted back, "Security logs show Conrad's keycard at 11:42 p.m. Thursday. No other entries that night." Exactly what I suspected, but still not enough. Conrad could claim he was conducting a security investigation. A week into my leave, Walter himself requested to meet me. His assistant arranged for us to meet at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. I arrived early, rehearsing what I would say. Walter was punctual, imposing even in casual clothes. At 70, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had built an empire from nothing. "Valentina," he said, settling into the chair across from me. No handshake. "Unfortunate circumstances. I didn't take your watch, Walter." He studied me silently. "Conrad is convinced otherwise." "Conrad is lying. I believe he took your watch himself months ago. I saw him." Walter's expression remained impassive. "That's quite an accusation. Conrad has been my right hand for 15 years. I understand how it sounds, but I was thousands of miles away when that watch appeared in my drawer. Yet access logs show your credentials were used to access files that night." I leaned forward. "Someone used my login remotely. That doesn't mean it was me." Walter sipped his coffee. "The company has invested considerably in your development. I personally approved your promotion to director. This situation is disappointing." I felt myself shrinking under his gaze. "Walter, please, look at my record. I've given everything to this company. Why would I suddenly start stealing?" "People surprise us," he said simply. "The investigation will determine what happens next." He left shortly after, and I knew I'd failed to convince him. That night, Naima called with worse news. "They're interviewing your entire team tomorrow. Conrad's saying they need to understand the extent of the problem." 2 weeks into my leave, the company rumors had evolved from theft to a complete character assassination. According to texts from various colleagues, I was now suspected of manipulating project data, taking credit for others' work, having inappropriate relationships, and creating a culture of fear on my team. The life I'd carefully built was unraveling. Former mentors stopped returning my calls. Industry contacts suddenly became busy. Even my own team seemed to be distancing themselves, all except Eleni, who continued to send me updates. "Conrad's officially taking over Singapore permanently," she texted on day 16. "He told leadership you created fundamental problems that he's now fixing." That night, I received an unexpected email, an invitation to the annual leadership gala, clearly an administrative oversight. but I stared at it for hours, imagining walking into that room where everyone now believed I was a thief and a fraud. Then I realized it might be my only chance to change the narrative. I spent the next 3 days preparing. I reviewed every document I had access to, called in favors from former colleagues at other companies, dug through old emails I'd forwarded to my personal account. Somewhere, there had to be something that would expose Conrad. The night of the gala arrived. I chose a simple black dress, elegant but understated, nothing that would draw attention until I wanted it. I arranged my hair differently, applied makeup more dramatically than my usual style. Small changes that made me less immediately recognizable to those who might try to avoid me. The hotel ballroom glittered with chandeliers and success. I slipped in quietly, nodding to the check-in attendant, who barely glanced at my invitation. Inside, executives and rising stars clinked glasses and traded carefully crafted humble brags. No one noticed me at first. I spotted Conrad holding court near the bar, surrounded by admirers. My team members hovered nearby, including Vic, who seemed to have appointed himself Conrad's shadow. Walter stood across the room, deep in conversation with the CEO. Moving carefully through the crowd, I positioned myself where I could overhear Conrad without being obvious. He was in the middle of explaining his vision for Singapore, taking full credit for partnerships I had built. The problem was structural, he told a group of vice presidents. The team needed stronger leadership. Sometimes you have to completely rebuild the foundation. I felt my hands trembling with anger. Months of my work, erased. My reputation, destroyed. My future, stolen. Then I saw it, hanging from Conrad's pocket, the telltale chain of Walter's pocket watch. He'd reclaimed his trophy after successfully framing me. The absolute arrogance of it stole my breath. I needed Walter to see it, to recognize his precious heirloom in the pocket of the man who'd supposedly recovered it from my drawer. As I plotted how to approach Walter, I noticed something unexpected. Walter was already watching Conrad, his eyes narrowed with interest. Then he turned slightly and caught me staring. Our eyes locked for a moment. He gave me the briefest nod before turning back to his conversation. What did that mean? Was it acknowledgement? Dismissal? I didn't have time to analyze it because Conrad suddenly broke from his group and headed straight for Walter. I moved closer, not hiding but not drawing attention, positioning myself within earshot. "Walter," Conrad said warmly, "excellent turnout this year." "Indeed," Walter replied. "I was just discussing the investigation with Victoria. Any updates?" Conrad straightened his jacket. "The evidence is quite damning. The watch was exactly where we found it, in her drawer." "Curious," Walter replied, swirling his drink. "Because after our conversation, I found myself wondering about other items that have gone missing recently. Did you know 3 senior leaders reported personal items disappearing in the past year?" Conrad tugged at his collar. "A concerning pattern." "Very concerning," Walter agreed. "In fact, it concerned me so much that I asked our head of security to review some records." My heart pounded as I realized something was happening that I hadn't orchestrated, something I couldn't have predicted. "Records?" Conrad echoed, his voice tight. Walter nodded, his expression pleasant but his eyes sharp. "Access logs to Valentina's office for the night you discovered my watch." Conrad's smile faltered slightly. "Standard security protocol. Only one keycard accessed her office that night," Walter interrupted. "At 11:42 p.m. Yours." I hadn't planned this. I hadn't known Walter was investigating independently, but I stayed perfectly still as something shifted in the air between the two men. As head of security, "The surveillance camera outside her office shows you entering with something in your hand," Walter continued, his voice still conversational, "and leaving without it. Rather unusual for a security investigation, wouldn't you say?" 2 security officers materialized beside Conrad, the same ones who had escorted me out. "We should continue this conversation privately," Walter said, placing a heavy hand on Conrad's shoulder. As they led Conrad away, Walter caught my eye and nodded, this time with clear intention. I stood frozen, struggling to process what had just happened. Across the room, I noticed Naima watching with wide eyes. She mouthed a single word. "How?" I had no answer. The revenge I'd been carefully plotting had just been rendered unnecessary by forces I hadn't seen moving. Or had it? The following day, I received a brief email requesting my presence at the office. No details about why or what to expect. I arrived wearing my most confident outfit, steeling myself for whatever came next. Instead of security, Walter's assistant met me at the elevator. "They're waiting in the conference room," she said, leading me past curious onlookers. Inside sat Walter, the CEO, and the head of human resources. No, Conrad. Valentina, Walter said, gesturing to a chair. Thank you for coming. Am I still under investigation? I asked, remaining standing. No, the CEO answered. You've been cleared of all allegations. We owe you an apology. I slowly sat down, trying to process this sudden reversal. Walter slid a folder across the table. You've been reinstated, effective immediately. Your team will be returned to your supervision, with appropriate compensation for this. Unfortunate situation. What happened to Conrad? I asked. Walter and the CEO exchanged glances. Conrad is no longer with the company, Walter said carefully. His access has been revoked, and he departed the premises last night. He just left? After everything he did? The HR director cleared her throat. We cannot discuss specific personnel matters, but I can assure you that appropriate action was taken. I leaned forward. He systematically destroyed my reputation. He told people I was manipulating data, stealing credit, creating a toxic environment. Everyone believes him. We'll address those misconceptions, the CEO promised. A company-wide announcement will go out today. That's not enough, I insisted. The damage he's done extends beyond this building. He's been calling my clients. Walter studied me, something like respect flickering across his face. What would you suggest? I want to know how you knew, I said instead of answering, about Conrad accessing my office. Walter's expression remained neutral. Security footage, access logs. Once we looked, the evidence was quite clear. Why did you look? After our coffee meeting, you seemed convinced of my guilt. A slight smile touched Walter's lips. Let's just say I received some compelling information that prompted a deeper investigation. I sat back, mind racing. When can I expect my full reinstatement? Immediately, the CEO said. Your team has been notified. Your projects, including Singapore, will be returned to your oversight. I nodded, stood up. Thank you. I'll need some time to review everything Conrad has touched in my absence. As I turned to leave, Walter called after me. Valentina? That information I received, very thorough, very precise, almost as if someone had been building a case for some time. Our eyes met briefly. He knew. I returned to my office, new lock already removed, to find my team waiting. Their expressions ranged from relief to embarrassment to curiosity. Eleni's eyes shone with unshed tears. Welcome back, she said, handing me a coffee. Your office is exactly as you left it. We made sure of it. Throughout the day, colleagues stopped by. Some offered genuine apologies for believing Conrad. Others pretended nothing had happened. A few tried to extract gossip about Conrad's dramatic departure. By evening, Naima cornered me in the break room. Okay, what actually happened? She demanded. One day, Conrad's practically running the company. The next, he's escorted out by security. And somehow you're immediately reinstated? I checked that we were alone. Walter received some compelling information. From who? I sipped my coffee. Anonymous source, apparently. Naima narrowed her eyes. You didn't seem surprised at the gala when Walter confronted Conrad. I was as shocked as anyone. No, she said slowly. You weren't. You looked satisfied. I smiled slightly. Did I? She grabbed my arm. Val, what did you do? I glanced around again before responding. Nothing illegal if that's what you're asking. That's not reassuring. I guided her back to my office and closed the door. Conrad made one critical mistake. He thought I was completely isolated during my vacation. No laptop, minimal phone use. Weren't you? You told everyone you were disconnecting completely. I did disconnect, I confirmed. From work, but I brought a tablet for reading books, and the resort had Wi-Fi. Naima's eyes widened. So when you heard about the accusations, I wasn't just sitting at home helpless, I finished. I was gathering information, building a case. The truth was more complicated. After the first week of administrative leave, I realized fighting Conrad directly would fail. He had too much influence, too much credibility with leadership. I needed a different approach. Remember how Conrad started undermining me right after I saw him take that watch? I asked. Naima nodded. It made me wonder if that was the first time. So I started investigating other instances where valuable items went missing. How? You were locked out of all company systems. I didn't need company systems. I needed people. I pulled out my personal phone. I created a simple survey about workplace theft, supposedly for a management course I was taking. Asked about missing personal items. When they disappeared, who was around? And people just responded. People love surveys. especially anonymous ones where they can complain. I smiled. I sent it to contacts throughout the company. Got 27 responses. 3 patterns emerged. Items disappeared after their owners received recognition. Conrad thought he deserved. Conrad was always nearby when items went missing, and the thefts accelerated after I took over Singapore. Naima looked impressed. Still, that's circumstantial. How did you get Walter to investigate? I didn't approach Walter directly. I compiled everything into a detailed report, including what I witnessed with the watch. Then I created an encrypted email account and sent the report to our head of security, copying Walter and the general counsel. Included dates, names, descriptions of missing items. That's why security reviewed the footage from your office? I nodded. My report suggested they check camera footage from that specific night. I knew Conrad would have used his own keycard. He wouldn't risk using someone else's credentials and creating another suspect. But how did you know Conrad would have the watch at the gala? That was lucky timing. Not luck, I said quietly. Psychology. Conrad collects trophies from people he's defeated. The watch wasn't valuable to him because of what it was, but because of who it belonged to. Once he thought he'd destroyed me using that watch, he'd want to keep it close, wear it as a reminder of his victory. Naima sat back, stunned. You predicted his behavior down to wearing the watch to the gala. Conrad is many things, but original isn't one of them. Men like him follow patterns. I just had to recognize his. So Walter independently confirmed everything in your anonymous report, Naima said. That's why he confronted Conrad at the gala. Walter may not have known who sent the report, but he's no fool. He connected the dots. But why anonymous? Why not confront Conrad directly with this evidence? I leaned back in my chair. Because I needed Walter to discover the truth himself. If I accused Conrad directly, it would look like retaliation. But an anonymous report presenting only facts, followed by Walter's own investigation, much more credible. That's brilliant, and slightly terrifying. I shrugged. Conrad taught me an important lesson about corporate warfare. The winner isn't who has the most power, but who best understands how to use the system. So that's it? Conrad's gone and everything goes back to normal? Not quite, I said. There's still the matter of my reputation. 2 days later, I called an all-hands meeting with my team. Many still looked uncertain, damaged by Conrad's manipulation. I know the past few weeks have been confusing. I began. Conrad told you things about me that made you question my leadership and integrity. I don't blame anyone for having doubts. Vic, Conrad's former lieutenant, stared at the floor. But now we have work to do, I continued. Singapore needs us. I need each of you. No grudges. No lingering suspicions. Clean slate. The team seemed to collectively exhale. I outlined our next steps, reassigned projects, and dismissed everyone except Vic. You were Conrad's strongest supporter, I said when we were alone. He was my mentor, Vic replied defensively. And now, he shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know what he was doing to you. Yes, you did, I said calmly. Maybe not everything, but enough. You chose your side. Are you firing me? I studied him for a moment. No, but you'll report directly to me now. Every report, every analysis, every client interaction goes through me first. That's not how directors typically manage senior analysts. Consider it your opportunity to rebuild trust. The Singapore project required extensive damage control. Conrad had begun dismantling my relationships with key partners. I spent weeks rebuilding those connections, explaining the situation without explicitly detailing Conrad's removal. 1 month after my reinstatement, Walter requested a private meeting. He placed a sleek box on the table between us. A token of appreciation, he said, for your exceptional work salvaging Singapore after the interruption. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small watch face. I thought you might appreciate the irony, Walter said with the faintest smile. I looked up at him. You knew it was me. The anonymous report. The report came from someone with intimate knowledge of the situation, analytical thinking, and precise attention to detail. Walter shrugged. It had your fingerprints all over it. Why not say something sooner? Some things are better left unspoken officially. He leaned forward. You handled Conrad more effectively than I could have. No direct confrontation, no public accusation, just carefully arranged evidence that led to an inevitable conclusion. I learned from watching the best, I said. Walter's eyes twinkled. The company needs leaders who can solve problems without creating messes. Your promotion to vice president is being announced next week. The board already approved it. After Walter left, I sat holding the bracelet, thinking about how differently things could have ended. If I'd confronted Conrad directly, if I'd given in to despair during my leave, if I'd tried to fight the accusations head on. The true victory wasn't just Conrad's removal. It was discovering my own capacity for strategic patience, for setting a trap and waiting for my opponent to walk into it of his own accord. 3 months later, I received an interesting email. Conrad had applied for an executive position at one of our competitors. They were conducting a background check and wanted to verify his employment dates and responsibilities. I drafted a perfectly factual, professionally neutral response, confirming only the most basic details. Then I attached the security footage of Conrad entering my office that night, footage I had requested for my records after my reinstatement. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't what you do to someone. It's ensuring they can never do the same to anyone else. That's my story. How I lost everything and got it back on my own terms. If you've ever been underestimated or pushed aside, I hope this gives you strength. Hit like if you've ever had to outsmart someone instead of outpower them. Leave a comment about your own workplace revenge stories, the smart, strategic kind. And subscribe if you want more stories about navigating corporate politics with intelligence instead of force. Because sometimes the best way through isn't breaking down walls, it's finding the hidden doors that were there all along.